Welcome folks to the Menai Indoor Sports Center for our final day of Get Sanctioned Eggstravaganza. My name is Teddy Skittles and I'm here with Candy Buns. Candy, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We're conscious, we're caffeinated, and just in case you're not watching this in real time, I'll say good morning. It is nearly 10 o'clock, but it feels earlier and somehow later. Anyway, let's get on with what we're here for. The first game is Inner West versus South Sea Banshees. So we've got a couple of minutes to spare. Well, no, we've got 1 minute exactly until the first whistle. And yeah, let's talk about the team. So playing for South Sea Banshees is Westy, Bombshell, Ducky, Spendy, Erin Frad, Grim Reaper, Harmon Miranda, Gryffindorable, Chaos, Scooby Doom, Cinderella, Princess Laypocalypse, Fleabag, Hottie, Smiles, Firefly Spirit, Calamity Payne, Citrus Vicious, Bonnie Jovi, and M-Dog. And on the bench, we've got Judy Bench, Scare Bear, and Merry Extreme. And skating for Inner West today, we have...
Skating for Inner West, we have 118 Vicious Delicious, 142 Warragamba Damsel, 16 Pussy Galore, 17 Peanut Butter Jammer, 1950 27 Pansy Slamsy, 28 Lou Riot, 325 Ash Bandicoot, 35 Roast Blockali, 4 Killer Knockingbird, 505 Rainbow Smash, 66 Backdoor Barbies, the Captain, Crash Bandit, 70 Rasputin, 77 Velvet Whiplash, 8 Madness, 88 China Wall, and Jinx 9.
And for the first jam that has just begun, we have Velvet facing off against M-Dog. Velvet Whiplash takes about 10 seconds left and right, but gets lead for Inner West. And this is a trend we're expecting to see today as Velvet comes in for a scoring pass.
M-Dog there still looking for a gap through the Inner West.
M-Dog is going to the bin with a cut.
Well, that's...
Velvet puts 4 points on for Inner West.
Well, if you wanted to get away Inner West blockers, that's certainly one way you could do it, isn't it? Probably not the way they were hoping for, though, giving Inner West a power jam on the first jam of the game.
I wouldn't call it an optimal strategy. But speaking of optimal strategies, Velvet has called the jam off for Inner West, icing M-Dog in the bin, which means that Inner West will start the next jam unopposed, and that will be Barbie Bombshell.
Power jam start here for Inner West. Barbie lining up there down at the jam line. So South Sea blockers lining up there on the pivot line. Let's see what strategy they employ here.
So
Barbie's off to a fly.
What you'd expect to see very often during a power jam start is the team that does not have a jammer trying to take the front line and basically just try and delay for as long as possible. As M-Dog returns to the track, Barbie comes around for their first scoring pass just ahead of M-Dog, but a lap ahead of M-Dog. He was not able to score points until they complete initial. Yeah, M-Dog just having a little fall and taking a long time to get up. So the jam has been called. M-Dog, of course, has just aged up from the juniors, I believe, at some stage in the last couple of years. So they've got a lot of future ahead of them, which is more than can be said for me. Okay, so while we're here, M-Dog is up and skating of their own volition, and they're just going to go spend some time with the medics just just getting checked out to make sure that they're absolutely okay, and they won't be returning for 3 jams. And while we're here, let's talk about our lovely friends, the officials. So our crew head ref is Claire Rule and Frankenherder on IPR. The 2 jam refs are Jim Peckable and Mushy. And outside we have Redacted, Mr. Fox, and Winosaur. For our NSOs, we've got Dinatello as Jam Timer, Vixen and Makita as PTLT. The scoreboard operator is Cockless Monster, and the scorekeepers are Tinker Belter in Switzerland. The penalty box manager is Leo Slayer, and the penalty box timers are Benalty and Messi. And the crew head NSO is Vengeful Vixen. So even though that jam did run short, Barbie did pick up 3 points, and that brings Inner West to 10 points to 0. So let's have a little talk about what we're expecting to see this game. So I think there's a really interesting change of mode for Inner West. Inner West have been the lower seeded team for every game that they've played this weekend. That means that they haven't had to score as many points as their opponents to necessarily go up in rankings and beat the predictor. But this time they're the higher seeded, and they're the higher seeded up to the cap, which is 4-1, which means that for every 1 point that the Banshees score, Inner West has to score 4. And of course, the easiest way to do that is to make sure that Banshees don't score any points, because 0 times any number is that right? That 0 times any number? Yes, excellent. That was the case. So what we'll be seeing and what we're expecting to see is Inner West prioritizing preventing the Banshees from scoring, even if that limits their ability to score. So we're expecting to see small chipping away as the game restarts with Peanut Butter Jammer jamming against Fleabag. Both working with their packs. Peanut Butter Jammer is at the front, is recycled to the rear by Cinderollas and Chaos. But now the Banshees are split into 2 groups of 2, did not make a solid tripod, and Peanut Butter Jammer gets lead for Inner West. Fleabag, about half a lap behind, completes their initial as a skater returns from the bin for South Sea. Peanut Butter Jammer gets 2, maybe 3 points and calls the jam dead before Fleabag can score anything. For Inner West, bring them to 13-0. Or, the way I like to see it, infinitely ahead.
Don't ever try and divide by 0.
They're infinitely in front.
Don't divide by 0. Bad things happen.
But let's say that I wanted to test if you were AI. Let's not. Jinx is lead for Inner West, while Bombshell is
bowling
just
over.
About to complete initial for South Sea.
Bombshell calls the jam.
Bombshell does not call the jam.
Oh.
Jinx does.
Yes.
And
someone's paying attention. It's not
once
me right
again,
now.
3 points to Inner West, 0 points to South Sea. No, but like if I asked you to divide by 0, and
I would tell you.
You were a replicant.
And I would tell you that a black hole will open up and you'll be sucked into the vortex.
But isn't that what you'd tell me if you were an android and didn't want me to?
No, that's what
to give you a divide by 0 error that would break your coding?
No, you can have lots of zeros and.
Anyway,
as I say that.
Velvet Whiplash.
On the toe stops. Beautiful work there.
Getting lead for Inner West in a matter of seconds.
Down the outside lane as well. Takes down an Inner West jet blocker in the process. Velvet Whiplash was looking for that inside line, changed to the last minute to go on the outside. Blocker's done an excellent job there to create this space for Velvet to go whichever way she pleased.
4-0 Inner West. Yeah, Velvet not taking the double line.
Yeah, that was.
Do you know what the double line is?
there's 2 lanes open?
No. So you essentially, if you go past all of the skaters on the line, you're just asking for one of them to hit you out. So we work on a lot in training to go past the first blocker and then to cut in on a 45-degree angle, so that keep changing your line and don't just run down that outside line, as Barbie does on her toe stops and gets lead for Inner West.
Smooth moves from Barbie there.
As Hottie takes the star off, looking for a pass, maybe a fake, pushing on that wall. Barbie gets past with the first 4 points. It's 100% lead for Inner West, and once again we expect to see that. Star pass to Bonnie Jovi, Barbie coming in.
We don't hope to see it. I had a chat to
we expect to see a high percentage.
Yes, we do. Having a chat to the South Sea team this morning, they have had by the numbers all of their points, all their teams they've played against have outscored them. However, they're not here to get the most points. Well, they're here to get as many points as they can, but ultimately they're here to play the game of getting their WFDA ranked up, and the way they do that is by outscoring the predictor.
I heard they were here for the bake sale.
Well,
anyway, 27 Inner West, 0 South Sea, as Peanut Butter Jammer face off against Fleabag again. Peanut Butter Jammer goes all the way to the back
and
to take a different line, runs through and gets lead.
It's an unusual strategy, but it certainly was effective there, as the pivot for Inner West goes down to the penalty box for a 30-second timeout.
Yeah. Sinbad knocks.
And there are another blocker from Inner West joining them, as well as a blocker from South Sea. This blocking pack is certainly starting to open up, and as Inner West call the jam.
4 points Inner West, 0 points South Sea. So it's going very well for Inner West, but it has to. They cannot make a mistake. They cannot let their guard down. And as we see 2 Inner West blockers face off against 3 South Sea blockers, this could be an opportunity for Bombshell to get lead against Jinx. And Bombshell, nearly ran down on the outside and got lead, but was knocked out at the last second. Jinx coming through and getting lead for Inner West. Fleabag half a lap behind, as both packs are going to run it.
The pack is moving.
Pack is moving. Jinx hits the wall, bounces off, possibly gets past 1 set of hips, past 2 sets of hips, and then gets another point for the skater sitting in the bin. 3-0 to Inner West. And once again, this very defensive game. It's almost like I predicted it from Inner West, but the opposite of the gameplay that we've been seeing from Inner West the entire weekend. And I'm just, as I said, I was curious to see how they pivoted, but this is probably a more familiar style of derby to how they used to play.
And Spendy down on the outside there, looking for a gap on Pansy Slamsy, but they close the door.
Velvet Whiplash through for initial for Inner West. Oh, Spendy,
another
so
big
close.
hit on Spendy there by, can't quite see the name, 118.
Vicious Delicious.
Vicious Delicious. Well, that shot was delicious.
Spendy has completed their initial now, so Velvet will probably pick up the last points that she feels she hasn't got yet and then call it.
Calls a jam. That's another full 4 points.
She did get all
Velvet
4.
Whiplash. Well played. Good jam awareness there from Velvet, keeping a track of which players she had passed and which players she hadn't got past yet, and then calling. Hottie here lining up for jam for South Sea.
And Inner West still on 100% of the points. 100% of the points of this game.
Well, that's
for
a bit
Inner
greedy.
West.
They want to. We don't want to share them with some other people, maybe.
Yeah.
Velvet Whiplash on the
Bombshell
toe stops,
versus-
hopping down there.
Bombshell for Inner West, Hottie for South Sea. And Bombshell pushing that pack, stretching it out, then getting lead. Hottie is pushing on the Inner West wall.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Barbie they're jamming to Inner West there. Candy, sorry.
Oh,
That's okay. We have our moments.
you said Velvet, I said Bombshell. we can compromise with Barbie. He started with a B though.
Yeah, you were right.
As Hottie is through.
Hottie gets out for South Sea, and then much to the cheers of their team on the bench, Velvet gets past, clears the pack, and calls the jam. Another 4 points for Inner West.
At least the jammer that you called played for that team. Mine did a quick jersey swap.
It is day 3 of a absolutely jam-packed comp here today.
And it is.
We will forgive you for the odd mess around every now and then.
It is Easter Monday. We could have a little Judas Iscariot trader.
So the South Sea team here today, they are playing to win, but they're playing to win a different kind of game. They're playing to win the predictor game.
Yes.
They want to beat the score predictor. So we do some math in the background and through the magic of spreadsheets. And the spreadsheets say that South Sea would be expected to not score as many points as Inner West. So we do some math in the background, and the bar that they need to beat to improve their WFTDA rankings is they need to score, for every 1 point they score, Inner West needs 4.
Yes.
So at the moment, for South Sea to be ahead, they need to be on about 11 points.
Which
is 11 more than they have.
Behind.
It's not that far behind. It's only, three full passes?
Yeah, it's exactly 3 passes. And this is the thing, is that Inner West have to chip away. They can't get greedy. If South Sea are out and looking to score points, then you're going to see them score it early, even if that means they only get 2 or 3 on a pass. They're not going to rack up big 16, 20-point jams unless they really lock down those jammers. And what South Sea has done a really good job of is getting their jammer out once they've lost their jammer and are free to do offense.
Yeah, good O from South Sea. Certainly the games we've seen this weekend have been especially heavy on the defense for both sides. So a bit of a change up to transition over and put some energy into that offense.
By the way, the reason why we're talking at the moment is the officials have called a timeout, and I'm not sure exactly why, but they're talking about something.
They look like they've come to a conclusion here, so we should
there
find
does
out in a
not
minute.
seem to be a technical difficulty with the scoreboard, so we won't have to have any of those fun shenanigans.
Thankfully, because we also do depend on the NSOs for this game to bring you the data on this game. So
look,
big thanks to them.
The NSOs I trust completely. The theme you may be seeing is that machines not so much. Machines are mean to me because they can sense my fear.
Oh, did they hurt you?
Yeah, which is why I asked them to divide by 0, because I know they don't like it. And you haven't necessarily passed that Turing test yet. Does look like we have reached a conclusion, and we have Mdor Fleabag lining up against Peanut Butter Jammer. Inner West taking the front, but only with 2 blockers versus South Sea's 4. This is the chance. This is a big opportunity, but Vicious Delicious single-handedly knocking Fleabag to the outside and running them all the way to the back. Now the pack's
really starting to split apart here.
Yes, and South Sea get their first lead for the game. Let's see what happens.
Much to the cheers in the room.
Peanut Butter Jammer is
huge hit there from Chaos on China Wall there, bringing them down to the ground. There's a full pass for Inner West, and Fleabag calls the jam. 4 points to South Sea, 0 to Inner West. Beautiful clean derby, hit, quit. And they're stoked to get points on the board.
The account.
And you don't have to worry about dividing by 0 anymore, Candy.
You don't have to worry about it. Because I'm not a robot. I'm not afraid. But I still have my suspicions about you.
Well, we'll keep an eye on you all the same. As Jinx barrels through to claim lead jam on this jam. Bombshell still stuck there at the back in the middle of the seam, looking for a multi. One more to beat. Can they get past the brace of that triangle as Jinx returns to the pack to start scoring? Pass 1, pass 2, pass 3. That's 4 full points for Jinx as they call the jam.
Oh,
Big loud call from Mr. Bump there on the bench for Inner West.
And an ice cold call, not because the South Seas jammer was out, but because South Seas had 2 blockers in the bin to Inner West's 1, giving them a pack advantage. Mr. Bump's thinking that this gives them a good chance of controlling the next jam, controlling the game, controlling the clock. That's what Inner West is all about. As Velvet
takes a knee and gets straight back up again. Westies there holding them back and Chaos there blocking. Velvet pushes Chaos down and gets lead jam. Beautiful bit of play there by Velvet, just not giving up.
Spendy is about half a lap behind as a wall forms in front of Velvet. A wall of returning blockers. And Pansy is the only remaining blocker from Inner West.
Big hit there from Crash Bandicoot.
And Spendy comes through with points. 4 more points for South Sea.
Not Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot. I'm sure that was the pun they were hunting for in their name. It's another 4 points for South Sea. They're up to 8.
They are. And 3 more for the tally of Inner West. But we see how much this ratio, this percentage can turn. So after the first 4 points, South Sea were up to 8% of the total points. Remembering, they've only got to get to 20. 20% of the total points is 1 in 4. After this jam, 4 more points, and suddenly they're up to 15%, and they're close to doing it. But Barbie through with lead for Inner West. Fleabag stuck at the front, pushing against a 2 wall, unable to get through Rainbow and Vicious Delicious. And that is until Rainbow holds Fleabag back with their forearms for just a little bit too long and goes to the bin. Barbie comes through for 4 points and calls it off before Fleabag can score any points. 4 more for Inner West, 0 for South Sea. But once again, that slight pack advantage for Inner West. And I don't know if we'll start to see Inner West in penalty trouble by the mid of the second half.
Alrighty, Bombshell lining up to jam for South Sea on this one. Peanut Butter Jammer, Inner West. Ref blows the whistle and we're away. Peanut Butter Jammer already dropped two blockers. They recycle, give it another go. They find a way through the inside line there. Bombshell still struggling on a pack of 4 blockers. Chaos managing to isolate, not Chaos, another one of the South Sea blockers isolating with their offense there. Almost pushing Velvet Whiplash to the line there. Wait, Peanut Butter Jammer to the line.
4 points for Inner West, 0 for South Sea. This game is tightening up.
That's right. South Sea just with a couple of jams here that went their way makes all the difference. Remember, 1 point for South Sea is worth 4 Inner West points.
We have
on
Jinx.
the score predictor.
Yeah. We have Jinx versus Spendy, and once again talking about in the greater sense though of different things that different teams are looking to get out of this. I talked to South Sea a bit yesterday, and one of the things that they are looking to do with their games is just to put into practice what they've been doing at training. You know, like the experience for the experience sake is in itself a goal. Jinx comes round, first scoring pass, 4 points for Inner West, calls it off with 2 South Sea Banshees in the bin. So pack advantage for Inner West. Once again, even though Banshees jammer was still on initial, they do an early call, they run down the clock another 30 seconds, and they bank it all that with 4 blockers on the track and 2 blockers on the opposing, they've got a good chance of getting lead again, controlling the game, extending their score, and not being greedy. And this is a very hard thing to
Whiplash
not be
has got
greedy.
only 2 blockers to beat with 2 blockers in the bin already. Pack advantage makes a big difference. And Fleabag takes a trip to the bin. It's a power jam for Inner West as another blocker goes to the bin for South Sea, and they will have a spot. So South Sea's this stuck with 1 blocker on the track, but it's 1 full lap is worth 4 points.
And once again, that early call, not being greedy, choosing to have a power jam with the pack advantage, with only 1 blocker and 1 jammer in the bin, but still keeping the game very much on their terms, making South Sea react to them.
Backdoor Barbie just having a quick chat to a blocking their team there about what the plan is for the next.
South
the
Sea
next
have
jam
called
here.
a timeout.
As South Sea called the timeout. Inner West just making a couple of changes. They want to keep South Sea out of this game as much as they can. That ratio can really hurt when you get to the back end of the game, so you can leak points as your jammers end up doing a lot more laps around the track.
Yeah. And this is something we can talk about. We can talk about maybe what, South Sea are looking to get out of this game, but I know that Inner West are looking at the rankings. I know that Inner West are wanting to get their rankings up, and they have one eye that they're not just looking at winning, they're looking at beating the predictor. And especially given that they had one game go their way, but they had one game not go their way already this weekend, that they're probably trying to catch up on some of the points that they lost against Canberra and BCR.
And we're away on the next jam.
Barbie jamming for Inner West. As the jammer stands for South Sea and returns to track. Barbie has not got lead yet, has got lead just now for Inner West.
Great work from the blocking pack of South Sea there. Just holding backdoor Barbie during that power jam. That's quite costly. You have to capitalize on your power jams when they're given to you, because they don't come that often. As Fleabag finds a way through the pack there. Rainbow Smash, the last one to beat. As Fleabag gets to the pack, backdoor Barbie calls the jam. But that is 1 point. Fleabag sneaks 2 points. 2 points on the jam. That's costly. Inner West definitely wanted to call that jam just before the South Sea's jammer got there, but wasn't able to do so in time.
And South Sea have double figures.
They've
10
cracked the
points
1-0.
to 68. As Bombshell lines up against Peanut Butter Jammer. They both hit the pack. Peanut Butter Jammer going all the way around both packs once again, taking their time, but Bombshell comes through to get lead.
And I hope you can hear the cheers in the venue, folks. People are really backing South Sea today.
Well, South Sea brought quite a cheer contingent all the way from Melbourne to Sydney, where we're playing today. There's a lot of family atmosphere around this South Sea's team. Bombshell
And for those who
nearly
are watching
completing
at
the
home,
scoring
we see it
pass
too.
as Peanut Butter Jammer gets out for their initial. So we'll see if South Sea call it now. Yes, they will.
Those cheers. That's another 4 points on the board for South Seas. 14 to South Seas, 68 to Inner West.
And that brings South Sea to 17% of the total points. Remembering their target is 20. Big number is what we want. So they are once again very close to their goal. And that's how quickly this can turn around. And it said how disciplined and controlled and patient Inner West have to be for this entire game. They cannot make a mistake. As Jinx does not make a mistake, Jinx gets lead for Inner West. Spinning on the toe stops on the outside. Spendy pushing the last 2 Inner West blockers.
Couple of whistles blown here. A couple of penalties to the Inner West blocking pack. That's going to make a big difference here, as Spendy comes through. Spendy calls the jam with 2 blockers in the bin. That will give South Sea the opportunity to start this next jam with a pack advantage.
Jinx calls the jam for Inner West with 1 point, but Spendy coming into the pack looking like they were about to score made Jinx call it off. Made Jinx call it off in a situation which is disadvantage to Inner West. And we'll see if Fleabag can take advantage of this pack. Versus Velvet Whiplash. Miranda Harmer tries to solo block Velvet Whiplash. Oh, as the 2 Inner West blockers separate and take turns in one-on-one blocking Fleabag effectively, and both jammers get out at the same time, but Velvet just ahead for Inner West.
Just edged it out.
Right on her tail.
The pack is moving, folks. They've got the speed on. Inner West hoping to create the time for their blockers to get back on, as they do here. Jammer v Jammer. Velvet Whiplash decides to call the jam.
So Inner West, that was interesting. Inner West ran that pack. They started accelerating as the blockers so that it would take longer for the jammers to get back into the pack and start scoring points. And the reason why they did that was they didn't want to give up any points, but they wanted to buy time for their blockers to get out of the penalty pin. And they did that. They got both of their blockers out of the penalty bin, and then they called it 0-all, but an absolute win for Inner West in maintaining control of the game and not allowing
Hottie
South
is
Sea
grinding
into
the back of China Wall.
Barbie skates around the outside to get lead for Inner West, while we have Hottie.
Oh, it's still a grind, and the helmet cover has gone down on the ground, so Hottie will have to get down, pick that back up again. Still on their initial. They managed to complete the star pass.
To Sinbad from South Sea. Forces the call off by Barbie. And that's another 4 points to Inner West, 0 to South Sea.
So, just checking the math here. South Sea only need 5 more points and they'll be ahead of Inner West on the predictor. So, still not very far. It's a little bit more of a safety gap for as Inner West are quite controlling this game, but just 5 points. It's not very much to swing it back their way. So Bombshell lining up here. Pax crawling back to the jam line. Good timing there by the triangle of Inner West to cross that jam line just after the whistle's blown. Bombshell gets out and gets lead jammed. The cheers from the crowd, and Peanut Butter Jammer is going to take a time out for 30 seconds in the bin, giving a power jam to Bombshell.
Peanut Butter Jam committing a high block while pushing into the opposing blockers. Vicious Delicious, I want to say buying precious seconds by
knocking them down.
Even just being on all fours above the jammer, preventing the jammer from getting up off the ground, and Bombshell calls it, but gives their team a power jam. South Sea also getting 2 vital points. So another.
Is there a penalty for that?
If Vicious had fallen on them, that would definitely be bad. Especially if it was deliberate.
Hang on, we do
have an official review.
I think this will be Mr. Bump's run up there. I think this is going to be a team review from Inner West to check that last play there. I think Mr. Bump will have carefully thought through something that they want to say. So they'll have to outline what they saw and what the call was and what they thought the call should have been. Kenny's just popped down there to check in. She'll be back soon with the details. Glam in the house comms just letting us know that in roller derby there is no ball. But there's plenty of wheels.
Okay, I've got the scoop.
Oh, give us the scoop.
So that was an official review by South Sea, and it was what we were discussing. They they were asking for a stop block on the blocker that knocked the jammer down, or for some form of penalty for getting in the way of the jammer from getting up. As I said, they didn't fold it over them, they didn't touch them and make contact, but they were
certainly limiting the jammer's ability to do much.
They were
underneath.
positionally blocking,
yeah,
and the jammer was not able to resume an upright and inbounds position without committing an illegal block on the blocker. And there is a casebook entry. It's just about it's one of two instances of a positional block which will give a penalty. Yes, Candy's getting nerdy now. And I expect that they're having a very fun conversation in the center, because this is one of the things where it's not like nobody saw it, but they're going to literally be talking about the intent versus, whether they're just off balance.
What can you call that too? Like, you have to call it as a penalty of kind.
So I would call it misconduct charging,
okay.
But as a positional block, if I was to call it, and I'm not, I am backing the official crew, whichever way they go on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But also
because just interesting because no contact was occurred.
Yeah, and the skater was off balance, so I suspect that what's happened is the skater was off balance. They didn't have control. They fell, and they did everything in their power to not land on top of the jammer and cause an injury. So they were trying to be safe.
Looks like the just waiting to see here what the outcome of this is as Spendy kicks off on this next power jam.
The official review did not result in a penalty and will not be retained, but everyone got to have a nice time out as well. But I think it was a question worth asking. But I think in a bad situation that the blocker did the best of their ability. Speaking of the best of their ability, Spendy is through on initial and scoring points as Peanut Butter Jammer is out of the box and coming in for their initial. Star in hand. Straight through the pack.
Fast initial lap there. Spendy probably, the team cries out, call the jam, and Spendy gets there just before Peanut Butter Jammer gets there to score some points here. Let's see how many points they got. No points for South Sea on the jam. Hang on, no, sorry, I'm corrected. It is 3 points.
3 points South Sea, 0 points Inner West.
Which brings South Sea ahead of the predictor.
And that's how close it can be. So I want to put it to you, as we have Jinx lining up against Fleabag. But I want to put it to you that
Jinx
a different
just
way of
dances around the
thinking
outside.
Yeah. Jinx has lead for Inner West, but another way of thinking about it, rather than 1 point versus every 4, think about it as if South Sea get lead 1 out of every 5 jams, that's not out of the realm of possibility. That's how dominant Inner West have to be. Jinx comes around for the first 4 points, and Bonnie Jovi goes to the bin. So you think, we got lead jam, 4
heaps.
times out of 5. We got heaps, but it's such a big ask if you score the same amount of points each time, and that's the other factor. This jam, however, Jinx gets 2 scoring passes to give 8 points to their team, giving us a quasi-lead change again. Is that right?
Hang on, let me double check.
Computer noises in the background.
Yes, computer noises confirm.
You are a robot.
South Sydney is just behind by 2 here now. Backdoor Barbie lining up for Inner West as the captain.
Versus Bombshell.
Bounces off Chaos and down the inside line to get lead jam. Bombshell still looking. There's a jammer down. That is Rainbow Smash. They have cleared the pack, and there's another penalty on South Sea's blocker. Backdoor Barbie, just some quick footsteps down that inside line to get some 4 points, bag them in.
4-0 to Inner West. Once again. 3 minutes to go in the first half. I'm not sure if Inner West will crack the 100. but they're keeping their nose just in front as Jinx lines up against Spendy. 4 blockers to Inner West, 2 blockers to South Sea, 3 blockers to South Sea.
2 blockers down, 2 to beat. This a very tall ask for any blocking pack for a jammer of Peanut Butter Jammer's quality. Sorry, Backdoor Barbie's quality. Wait, hang on. Who's jamming again?
Oh, my bad.
It's Killer Knockingbird.
We have Killer Knockingbird.
Got their first jam in this game.
Yes.
Spendy's coming through with some speed, but not fast enough.
I apologize for misidentifying Killer Knockingbird as Jinx.
That's okay. I had 2 goes and it was wrong both times. So you and me both on that one, Candy. Just
And that's
2 minutes
interesting.
left on the clock.
We've been seeing the same 3 jammers, one after the other, and they introduce a 4th. How can you do this to me?
Nobody expects the 4th jammer in rotation. Actually,
I believe,
maybe we should have.
yeah. Velvet versus Fleabag. 2 blockers on each team, a 3rd one coming to join South Seas as Fleabag gets lead. Velvet not far behind. Quarter of a lap, closing.
Yeah, closing the distance. Fleabag's going to want to sneak some points and call the jam, I think.
Fleabag gets all of the points and keeps on going.
They're going to go again for another lap.
Yes, get greedy, South Sea.
Velvet Whiplash there, driving through. There's only... Oh, yeah, there's the melee over there in that corner.
So if
Fleabag's on a roll, another 4 points, and they call the jam. That's going to really drag out their points advantage here onto the predictor by quite a margin.
That is what they need to do. So 8 points for South Sea versus 4 points for Inner West. But South Sea are not as hurt by those 4 points
against them
as Inner West is hurt by those 8. Those 8 are the equivalent of 32.
Don't ask me to do math on a weekend. Alrighty, as we kick off, Bombshell driving through the back of that blocking pack.
Bombshell lead.
Another lead.
South Sea lead. 2 jams in a row. Peanut Butter closing though. At half a lap when they came out, it's a quarter of a lap as they hit the engagement zone. Bombshell getting a couple of points, calling the hips.
Calling the jams.
Tapping the hips, calling the jams.
2 points on the jam for South Sea.
I was a little worried that the time in between the tap of the hips and the 4th whistle may have allowed Peanut Butter Jammer to get a point or 2, but
this is the way the
they did not.
Game can get away for you when you're playing to the score predictor. Inner West needs another 35 points to come back ahead again. That's a huge ask. Well, as we kick off for this, probably the last jam of the game here. Jinx is through for lead jam
of the half.
Hang on, there's a high block called from the refs on Jinx, giving another power jam to South Sea.
I'm not sure if that's a high block or a forearms, but the result does not matter.
Doesn't matter. They're still going to take 30 seconds in the bin.
And this gives Spendy an opportunity, although against 3 very good blockers
to
get lead for South Seas. And South Seas have lead 3 jams in a row. This is almost something that should have been on a bingo card. Spendy coming in to score as Jinx leaves the box, still on initial. Spendy has time to get these points.
They've got the star in their hand here. There is no lead jammer. Oh, sorry, my bad. Spendy's lead. Has 4 points on the board. That's going to hurt for Inner West.
I don't use the word devastating lightly, but this last little run of play has been absolutely devastating.
Jinx has got some speed on. Spendy goes down, calls the jam just before Jinx arrives in the engagement zone.
Oh, and Spendy not getting any points on that last pass.
The pack put on some serious speed there.
You're noticing from the tone of my voice that I could have sworn that Spendy was past one blocker and there was another blocker in the bin. So Far be it from
We're
me.
going to respectfully disagree with the refs.
I strenuously object. but there is a chance because that blocker did knock Spendy over, and they may have knocked them off their feet, Spendy off her feet, and then she may not have landed on her skates, which means that she would have been counted as airborne until she lands.
So you're airborne until your skates hit the ground?
Yeah, so if you apex jump, you are upright and inbounds.
Right.
From the moment that you leave the ground until you land it, as long as you land on a skate. So if you faceplant after you put one foot down, you still get the points.
What if I'm laying on my back and my skate is touching the ground? I'm no longer. That'll be all right.
So if the first part of your body that touches the ground after you leave the ground is not your skate, you will not get that point. So if your knee touches the ground first, or if your bottom touches the ground first, then you did not land that apex jump. This apex jump, for the purpose of the rules, was not over the apex. But that may have been why Spendy didn't get those points. And that is why I'm quite happy to be corrected and told that I'm not actually wearing stripes and blowing a whistle right now, and my opinion doesn't matter. But at half-time...
we're going to call it for half-time here, intermission. We'll be back in about 10 minutes or so, so go, get up, have a quick break, go to the loo.
Do 50 push-ups.
Do a sneaky chore of some kind. We've got... South Sea on 36 points, Inner West on 93. My name's Skittles.
My name's Candy.
And we'll see you soon.
To the scoreboard for Inner West. Bring them to 109 versus 43. So we have To Kill a Mockingbird, very punny, facing off against Spendy. This is the second time we've seen them, Jen, and they have a 100% lead percentage so far, 1 from 1. But it is taking some time for either to really find purchase. Spendy now at the front, pushing the last two blockers, getting past and getting lead for South Sea. Still Mockingbird, still in the middle of that pack, 2 to beat. As Spendy prepares to come back into the pack, score some points. Mockingbird out. Spendy not necessarily past some people now. I think she's picked up 1, 2 points, maybe 3. Oh, spins and twists the hips to try and get in front while calling it off, getting that 3rd point. But the brace remaining, making sure that they do not give up their point. 3-0 to South Sea. And once again, Inner West just not able to get the consistency that they were for the first 10 minutes.
This is what happens when you play these ratio games on the ranking system.
Aren't they fun?
Once the team that's on the bottom end starts to get some points in, they find a way. The game can get away from you very, very fast. 1 12-point jam can be exceptionally painful.
So Peanut Butter Jammer getting lead for Inner West. Bonnie Jovi for South Sea holding up their hands, thinking that they knocked Peanut Butter Jammer out and it should have been called for a cut.
Hottie's looking for a star pass here. They've completed the star pass, but the pivot who's grabbed the star has gone to the ground. It's not the way you want to see a star pass go.
It's a very sad star pass when you then go to the back of the pack and you're in no better position than the jammer was. As PBJ comes through for their second scoring pass, 8 points for Inner West.
Bonnie Jovi does clear the pack to start the scoring pass, but Peanut Butter Jammer knows what's going on, calls the jam as the call is from the bench.
Bonnie Jovi, one of the South Sea players who skates for the A team and the B team. I don't want to say a legend, but certainly a veteran, and a very, very good player. So Bumps was not going to risk letting Bonnie Jovi rack up some points with a star on her head. We have Fleabag versus Jinx. Seen this before. We've got 3 on each team.
Jinx
We've
goes
seen
to
that
ground,
before.
Gets back up again. Couple of pushes as a penalty on
Sinbad goes to the bin for direction.
Cinderella.
And Chaos follows, not far behind. Jinx does an apex jump to pick up 4 points as Fleabag comes in for a scoring pass, and this caster wonders why this jam has not been called, but Inner West as... Oh, that is because Fleabag was still an initial, had just completed initial. As Jinx comes in, gets another 8 points.
That's the clinical sort of roller derby that we want to see from Inner West.
And now you want to see an apology for me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cinderella. It's funny. I've known them for years.
You'll have to apologize to them later too.
We ref together.
Maybe they just have a different ref name?
Maybe. Yeah. Barbie on
That
the
could be the
outside
one.
gets
All right.
lead in a matter of seconds. Bombshell. Once again, Barbie and Bombshell. I suspect that both teams are generally running a 3-jammer rotation.
So they just come back around on that same rotation. Velvet Whiplash finds the gap around the outside. The 2 blockers who were on track for South Sea were held up, but Miranda was coming in for the block there, but instead of getting the block, gets a penalty. Will take 30 seconds in the bin,
Well, she
20
did
of those
both.
sitting and 10 seconds standing.
I mean, I'll argue she did both. She did the block, but she just started running back before she'd completed the block, and that meant that her feet were going the wrong way, and she had to go and sit for a direction.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like what I was very bad with ball sports, was that I would have to remind myself to catch the ball and then throw it. You can't throw it before you've caught it, right? So you've got to block the player and then run them back, because if you start running them back and then block them, you're going to go to the bin for direction. As we have Spendy versus Knocking Bird. So we talked about, them happening to line up like this, but I wouldn't put it past Inner West having designs and planning some of these things. There's some very smart brains operating computers over there. And they've got a plan. They've always got a plan.
They've got to match up on the jammers.
Knocking Bird gets lead for Inner West, which means that the maths has worked out. And
We talk a lot about jammer v jammer matchups. Is there much to be said for jammer and blocker matchups that you keep an eye on?
absolutely, but there's so many variables there. Generally, I wouldn't be surprised if there are packs. There's this pack, which is generally these 3 or 4 blockers, and there's this pack. So it's not necessarily this blocker is this person's kryptonite. It's they'll be getting stats that against this pack, this jammer's doing well, or with this pack, our jammer is getting the offense and that they need.
And the whistle blows and we're off. Velvet Whiplash right into it. 2 blockers to beat. 1 to beat. The South Sea a little bit chaotic there on their formation of that wall. Just weren't quite ready in time.
Yeah. Fleabag still stuck at the back for South Sea as Velvet comes around to score.
I think that was Chaos blocking for South Sea there.
Pansy going to the bin for a direction for Inner West.
Chaos was going to do some offense to help Fleabag through, and then decided they needed to swap and help out with their blocking pack as they were down a blocker.
Fleabag tantalizingly close to getting out for initial and then stepping out after being hit by Vicious Delicious.
They'll have to do that all over again.
But they are out, and on the tail of Velvet, Velvet will... Once again, Inner West are trying to run the pack in order to get their blockers out of the bin. They're trying to buy precious seconds. And once again, South Sea were letting them by following.
Yeah, if South Sea have got 4 blockers on track, they can control where the pack is, right?
So, yes and no.
If you had 4 blockers that just sat still and said, this is where the pack is, and the other team's only got 2 blockers on track. How does that set us up for that sort of situation on...
It all depends on how they go from moving to not moving. If they go to moving from not moving very suddenly,
That could be a destruction?
they will destroy the pack. So if all 6 skaters are skating, as we have an official review, I'm going to go. But if all 6 skaters are skating and then one team slams on the brakes, one of them is going to the bin.
Yeah, okay.
But if they slowly decelerate and gradually drift away from the other pack, then they can say, no, we are going here, but no further. You will not run this pack. I see what you're doing. No.
Alrighty there. You see the sassy blockers there. They're having a good time. They've come here to execute a plan, and they have executed. Inner West would need to score 44 points to come back ahead on the expected score game. So, oh, look at those skills. They're beautiful skills there, Miranda and Bonnie Jovi.
Hello, and I'm back.
Guess who's back?
No.
No?
No.
All right.
If your favorite rapper is Eminem, that's a bad sign.
There's so many accidental references in...
Oh, yeah.
The number of times I talk about a skater going around the outside lane.
We've got Bombshell versus Barbie again. And
both sprinting off on the toe stops. Bombshell with the speed and is bumped out of bounds there.
So I will quickly say that the official review was not retained, and there was no penalty given or rescinded due to the official review. As Barbie comes in for a scoring pass, Bombshell still just struggling on the first couple of blockers from Inner West. Bombshell does a sneaky little whip off. Barbie does a sneaky little whip shot off Bombshell, but either no one saw it or there wasn't
cheeky.
there wasn't impact. Okay, there wasn't. It's just a little one. Just as a treat. Bombshell.
Cheers going up in the room.
Turning around. So Barbie turning around to make sure the hips get past the last one, calling it off 4-0 to Inner West. So what that was one of those official reviews where Bump saw an action and then saw a penalty and then said that wasn't a penalty. And the officials very quickly said, oh no, they did something a couple of seconds earlier. So yeah, we're talking about a different action, and they went, oh, that's all right then.
As we run off, Spendy down on that outside. In on, China Wall comes in late. Was not able to do enough though. Peanut Butter Jammer there, stuck in that stationary, strong wall that South Sea have been building a reputation from. As Spendy comes back to start their scoring pass, the South Sea blockers, their blocking pack starts to disintegrate and finds the gap for Peanut Butter Jammer to get through. 4 points on the board for Spendy here. Spendy decides to call the jam. Lovely work. 0 points to Inner West on the jam.
So South Sea bring up their 50.
It's a half century. Do they get a moment? They don't really have bats to hold to the crowd, do they?
No. Well, I mean, I failed to acknowledge when Inner West went past 100 points. But yeah, South Sea bring up their 50 before Inner West bring up their 150.
Yeah.
But at this point, Inner West need to be 200. So they're 56 points off the expected ratio that they need to maintain or gain their ranking. Hottie pushing the Inner West wall versus Jinx. Jinx spins around the inside this time, gets lead.
Hottie's got the helmet cover off. They're looking for a star pass as the blockers for Inner West change their strat. Beautiful track jump there by Jinx to score another 4 points. Cheer goes up in the room.
As the star is passed from Hottie to Bonnie Jovi again.
Bonnie Jovi just going to come around, start their star pass. Jinx probably, as the lead, probably looking to score a couple more points here. This pack's put on some speed. They call the jam.
Did they get all 4? Did they? Refs conferring, just Mushy asking the outside packs exactly when Jinx maybe have left the track or scored the points before holding up 3-7 for that jam for Inner West as they pass their 150, so they get to hold 3 bats in the air.
3 bats in the air, huh?
It's very gothic.
I like it.
Ozzy Osbourne would approve.
We're bringing the medal.
Is that before your time? Is that before?
Sorry, yes. I'm going to show my age just a little bit there.
Show your lack of age just a little bit there. And we have a timeout to South Sea, which is very sensible. No.
Why is it sensible?
Timeout to Inner West. Because it's tiring and it's hot. It's not as hot as yesterday. It's not as hot as it probably will be in about 2-3 hours.
Surely there's some strategic value to calling the timeout now, as South Sea have claimed lead jammer for a couple of jams here. It's time to just
there's 12
change
minutes.
It up.
There's 12 minutes to go. Break the momentum. Bump may have some changes that they want to make, or Pi might have some data that they've observed from the computer. And they can relay that to the team. But also, both teams have got 2 timeouts left, and South Sea have an official review, so we could have 5 more stoppages of play. I have noticed a couple of skaters not wearing their skates anymore. One from injury, and one from either a foul out or an expulsion. So we don't, as the players get fewer and fewer, the fatigue factor will come in. And the fatigue is something that Inner West cannot afford. Speaking of fatigue, Barbie, pushing against this wall. Bombshell also pushing. We're now 30 seconds into this jam, and neither of them look like getting lead anytime soon.
Direction penalty to Westy. They'll have to go and take a timeout.
Bombshell gets to the front and then gets deposited outside the line, run all the way back.
Given the pack advantage back to Inner West.
Bombshell gets out 50 seconds into that jam. So that was almost...
That's a really long first phase of this jam.
Bombshell coming around, sneaking past the outside, scoring 3 points, scoring 4 points, calling it off. Taps on the hips becoming more and more frantic, but she was positioned exactly on the other side of a blocker, so the jam ref could not see the hip taps. 4 points brings them to 150. I'm good at math. Just don't ask me.
They've only got 3 on that one, so 154.
Oh, I strenuously object to only 3 points in that one.
Respectfully disagree with the ref's decision. As we kick off for this next jam here.
Nothing but respect and all of the love in the world.
Alrighty. Bombshell's got 1 to beat. Sorry, though, that's... I can't read.
That's
Fleabag.
Fleabag versus Killer Mockingbird. Killer Mockingbird is now out. About half a lap between, but Killer Mockingbird is closing the gap. Fleabag comes in.
But not enough. Fleabag is going to get in there. They're looking for a way to get around some hips here.
So Fleabag needs to not worry about Mockingbird scoring points and concentrate on them taking the time to make sure that she gets 4.
All right,
that's
so
1,
they've
2,
got
3, 4, yes.
4 apiece, even on the jam.
As Westy stands in the bin.
So
not quite getting out. 4 all for that jam. Brings us to 54 to 58, 158. And that 4 points represents another 12 that Inner West need to make up.
Big margin if Inner West wants to go up in their rankings on this game. One might say it's starting to become a little bit more unlikely. 10 minutes left in the second half.
And here's where they start to... Bum has to start to ask it, if that is a goal that they want. Velvet pushing the last blocker in order to get lead for Inner West. Versus Spendy takes a hat off at the back.
60 points would be a long way to come back at South Sea, wouldn't it?
Well, it's a long way to come back 4 points at a time. So, 4 points, 3 points there.
Chaos.
Whiplash gets 4 points.
Completing the star pass. Smile on their face. I think this is the first time I've seen them wear the star all weekend. Unfortunately, Velvet Whiplash won't let them get a chance as she calls the jam.
That's just mean-spirited. But you can't stay mad at Velvet Whiplash. She's just such a lovely human.
Don't hate the game. Wait. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's what I was going for.
That's definitely how the saying goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the question becomes, for bumps, is do they start running it long? Do they or do they just need to get a power jam at some stage?
All right, Jinx hopping down the outside line. Oh, just beautiful work on the toe stops. Staying in bounds, but only just, but that's all that matters.
So
doesn't matter how much you are in bounds as long as you are in bounds. Bombshell is through also. Bump's got his hands in the air. They're going to change it to call the jam. Call is heard across the auditorium as they do call the jam. 3 points.
Yeah, Jinx did hear the call, but she looked and she knew she had a couple more seconds just to make sure that they could get...
Every point counts.
Yeah, just a couple more points. Didn't quite get it all 4, but the 3.
But the greed was just enough that they were still able to...
It was controlled. It was disciplined.
That.
Yeah. It was not rank insubordination from the Inner West Jammer. Peanut Butter.
Hottie lining up with a little bit distance from that jam line, giving them an extra bit of speed as they crash into the back of the pack there. China Wall dropping off. It's going to take a penalty along with Westy, both reducing both packs down to 3 blockers apiece. Hottie's got the star in their hand. Are they looking for a star pass?
4 points on the inside for Peanut Butter Jammer. Both jammers off that line were impeded by a multiplayer block, and then the pack advantage happened accordingly. But then
Peanut Butter Jammers take on advantage of this, got out, and their lead jammers. Hottie's still looking to potentially complete the star pass, potentially to get through and start their initial. Driving there on the toe stops, they're through. Hottie's through. That was some determination to find a way, and they have.
So Inner West were probably thinking of this as the jam that they could do multiple scoring passes, thinking that they could hold down Hottie for a good minute and a half. But it did not happen. Pushing through on the outside, Hottie gets out and makes Inner West call it off.
But there's a couple of jams now in a row where South Sea haven't been able to get any points on the board. So, little by little, and Inner West eking that advantage back out.
This is what we expected. Barbie on the inside gets lead for Inner West. Fleabag takes the hat off, holds it in the hand, fakes to pass it to Bonnie Jovi, decides better of it. As Barbie now comes in to score points. But looks like the only hips that they're really getting past are Fleabags. Fleabag on the outside, runs around, skates around, and completes their initial. Barbie behind, calls it early rather than late. 4 points for Inner West. And it sounds so procedural, it sounds so cookie cutter, but this is...
It's kind of derby, isn't it?
This is what this derby requires.
Hit, quit, points on the board, hold your opposition down, and don't let them get an edge.
And it's interesting you say that's kind of what derby is. That is kind of how most people play derby, but I think that's because that's how your favorite teams play derby, because your favorite teams are usually the highest seed. Velvet Whiplash through full lead, but Spendy not far behind. We'll see how many points Velvet Whiplash can pick up before calling it off. Is my prediction of what's going to happen.
All right, hit me.
No, my prediction is that it will be a hit and quit. It'll be short. That South Sea will be prevented from scoring any, and that Inner West pick up 2 points.
I think you just saw the future there. That's exactly what happened.
Well, the great poet Trent Reznor would say, "I believe I can see the future because I repeat the same routine.
Oh, that's devastating. Is there a timeout here for Inner West?
So this brings the relative percentages to 23% for South Sea and 76% to Inner West. Remembering that the target is 20 and 80. So 23, 76.
Not quite the distance yet.
It's not comfortable.
But
South Sea are ahead.
Inner West would need to put on another 37 points to even up that ratio to get it back to 80-20 without South Sea getting anything. Sorry,
Yeah.
Inner West needs to put on 37. Apologies for the wrong way round there. That is that's 10 laps, really.
Now there's 4.5 minutes to go. And if there's...
That is possible. That is a possible gap for them to
But you've got to
close.
remember that in between every jam...
The time goes down by 30 seconds, right?
So if you divide that by 30-second blocks, you don't get there. That's only 9.
And Inner West have got one more timeout in the bank they can use to turn the time off just a little bit, but it may not be enough. Killer Knockingbird skates straight through on the toe stops on that outside lane 4, as she likes to do a couple of times this game so far. Bombshell stuck in the pack there.
So mathematically, what we've shown is that they need to do a couple of multiple scoring pass jams, and this could be their first one.
Killer
4
Knockingbird
points on the
pinballs
board.
off the South Sea blockers there, bounces their way through for another lap. That's another 4 on the board.
Yeah.
The pack's put on some speed. Killer Knockingbird's looking. She's got 1. She's makes the call.
She's got 2. No, just 1.
Just 1. I think the other player she passed was out of bounds at the point of passing.
No, that would have been an extra point. So I saw 2 blockers ahead, and I thought I quickly looked at the penalty bin to see if someone was in there, but they weren't.
So if someone's in the penalty bin and you pass, you get that point as soon as you pass the first player?
Yes.
All right.
But that 5 more points for Inner West.
Jinx down that outside. Toe stops. That's 2 in a row for South Sea. They might need to have a quick review with their blocking team to stop that coming through. But Fleabag back on track, found a way through. So Jinx has got to get in, get out, call the jam, and they do so very quickly.
188.
The coaching staff, bench crew of Inner West, very aware of the limited time left in this game if they want to pull ahead. And they are inching their way there. They still need 28 points to get ahead. They're just chipping away. Chip, chip, chip. 5 seconds is called. Spendy jamming here through... Spendy jamming here. Peanut Butter Jammer looking for the line down the outside, but Spendy's there instead, so they can't get through.
I thought Spendy may have cut to Peanut Butter Jammer there, but obviously I was the only one who thought that. So I'm going to say Spendy got a little bit lucky
down that
there.
outside line, beautiful. Peanut Butter Jammer is still held up. Cheers go around the room for Spendy as they get lead jam on the last few jams of this game.
Now,
Peanut Butter Jammers down on their tail. Spendy comes into that outside line, into the engagement zone on their toe stops. Peanut Butter Jammers come through as well. Spendy hasn't called the jam yet.
Now
Pack's put on some speed. Penny gets 4 points and call. Are they going to call the jam? They're deciding to run it.
They're not going to call it because they want to run down the clock. They want this game to end. They're in a. So it's not necessarily about the points they scored this jam. It's about not giving too much time for Inner West to keep doing this comeback. So the jam ends with 7 points to 6 in South Sea's favour. But it's more about the clock.
That's made a significant impact. That margin that Inner West had that they were slowly chipping away at has just got away from them now, folks. Inner West would need another 45 points. I don't think it's going to happen.
The next jam will start with 1 minute 10, 1 minute 5, and that's not a lot of time. Inner West have one more timeout, and they can use that.
They would need 2 back-to-back monster jams to get 45.
So what they need, and South Sea
it's not going to happen because South Sea's got lead here.
And it'll be interesting to see whether or not they run the clock out. They can't quite run the clock out. Yes, they can.
Oh, that's a huge hit on the just bombshell collided straight into the shoulder
of Pansy.
Of Pansy Slamsy, and they go down to the ground.
As Barbie scores 4 points.
They're tapping their hips, say they want to call the jam. A little bit of miscommunication there with Jim Peckable, the jam ref for South Sea there.
So the jam's called with 34 seconds to go. There will be one more jam.
One last jam. I see Bump wandering around close to the track here. What's he looking for? He doesn't have any timeouts left.
He has one.
Is he going to call it?
Well, he doesn't gain anything from that timeout
He's going to do it
terms
anyways.
of clock management. But
there'd still only be one jam left in this game, whether he called it or not.
yeah.
And he doesn't have any reviews left, so there's no reviews to call either.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say an unassailable lead.
But I'll say it.
But you'll say it.
I'll say it.
Um,
Inner West would need 57 points. They've got one more gem. I don't think that's going to happen.
what they would need, and this is something I was talking to someone about the other day, is that they would need a power jam. And this person was like, oh, that's a bit mean, like wanting the other player to get a penalty. But the way I think about it in this sport, I think of a jam, a power jam, that's like a cut or something like that, to very much the way I think of a knock-on in rugby.
Yeah, you sort of need your opponent to make
fumble.
a mistake. Yeah,
you're looking for that error which causes a turnover, and when when you're just hard up against it and you need that 16 to 20 points turnaround, maybe not 57.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest jams I've ever seen is like in the realm of like 28, 30. That's enormous.
But you can force that power jam. You can force that fumble of the ball, that knock on, by putting pressure on. Yeah. So for what should be the last jam with 10 seconds on the clock is Velvet Whiplash versus Fleabag. And they've both had a really great game.
Velvet Whiplash put on the speed, driving this pack down, creating this gap. Claire Rule calls no pack as the pack has to disengage. That gives Velvet Whiplash the advantage. They're speeding around now on lead jam.
Bonnie Jovi just tracks Velvet a little bit after the no pack, a little bit longer than she knew she should. And
Velvet
she goes
Whiplash
to the bench.
bounces off a blocker, spins around and takes the inside line. That's another 4 points for Inner West. They may not be able to close the distance all the way, but every distance they close is a victory, and they have cleared the 200, which is another mental victory that they will take home after this game, their last game of this competition. 4 more points on the board. This is turning into a big jam for Velvet Whiplash.
And big smiles on the face of Velvet
and
Whiplash.
Fleabag has found a way down that outside line on that turn there. So they will come back around here. Velvet Whiplash completed another jam, another lap. They've called the jam. Huge last jam. 12 points on the board for Velvet Whiplash there at the end.
The unofficial score says 64 to 211. Dino blows the whistle. And the unofficial score becomes official.
Alrighty,
64 to 211. A close game, close-ish game.
Great game here for the first game of this last day of Eggstravaganza gets sanctioned. South Sea came to play the rankings game. They've come to play to beat the ratio, to beat the expected score, and they have done so against Inner West here. We're going to cut to a break in just a few moments. Do you have any last words, Candy?
I think both teams are going to come away from that feeling pretty happy. So South Sea can take the win from the rankings point of view, and for the weekend, 3 pretty good games. I think they won 2, lost 1 according to the WFTDA rankings.
Yep.
Inner West, the newest, might be the newest WFTDA league in Australia, and the newest team, having only got their ranking last week, can come away, get really consolidating and getting more data points so that their ranking accurately reflects the strength of their team. And I think they are like 8th or 9th in Oceania.
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot, but yes. So yeah, and I think they'll be very happy with the weekend and very happy with this game as well. Anyway.
Alrighty, with that, folks, we're going to go to a break. Don't go too far, folks. We've got one more game to bring to you from the Menai Indoor Sports Center. That will be Canberra plays Sydney. My name's Skittles.
My name's not Skittles. I'll see you next time.
Alrighty.